First of all, I want to thank Henny and Tertius for being prepared to do a presentation and to learn us more about casting of white metal.
Baie dankie Kobus. Ja, ons wil net eers verduidelik, ons het so verlede week of 2 weke terug was ons daar by Kevin Casey gewees. En hy het vir ons geleer of gewys hoe om die white metal te cast. So ons het baie video's geneem en ons wil dit graag vanaand met julle deel on how to cast white metal. I know there is a few people around that has also done it before, like Philip Kushka and Arthur. Also, yes. So please feel free to chip in and correct us and help us. We are definitely not experts. We're apprentices at the moment. So yeah, feel free to join the conversation.
Okay, first of all, the white metal thing is, a lot of guys is quite afraid to make a start with it, but I think it's actually quite simple if you go through the procedure and just go for it, and then you will see it's not that complicated and not that lot of troubles to get started with it. There's a few things that you will need. The white metal itself, it's available in South Africa, and what is it from? What's the name?
National Solder.
Yeah, National Solder. Yeah, I think Orchid he will also help us with this. It's 90% tin content, and so it's quite available, but you can also order it from the US. The tin compound is also, it's a compound we use to get the bonding between the white metal part and the caps and conrods, and also on the block. Blowtorch is important, a very good one, also with high tension heat, and also primers with normal handy gas is fine. The vise with aluminium jaws is very important, because the conrods and also the caps, if you work on them and you use a vise with hard metal jaws, you will definitely destroy it, and you'll have a lot of troubles with that. And then the rest is a marking pen, a good electronic scale, that's for the balancing of the conrods, and yeah, the casting pot is, I look at a lot of casters on the internet, and they also got they always got a lot of trouble with the debris on top of the white metal itself, and Kevin got a beautiful pot, and it worked absolutely fantastic. The spout is at the bottom of the pot, and there's no trouble with the debris on top, so the casting is quite easy with that. Yeah, and then a small paintbrush that we used for the tin compound, just to put a thin layer on when you do the tinning.
Okay, as ons begin met die conrods en die big ends. Die eerste ding wat gedoen moet word is om die ou babbitt af te kry en dit skoon te maak. So dit het Kevin dan gedoen met die blowtorch. Julle kan sien daar in die foto. En dan daarso is 'n mooi foto van die casting pot wat hy gemaak het uit 'n ou generator housing uit. So hy maak seker dat die ou babbitt wat afkom en die nuwe babbitt nie meng nie. So mens moet eintlik twee casting pots hê wat jy apart kan hou. As jy dit warm gemaak het, dit word soos soldeersel en dit loop net af, en dan gebruik mense 'n stainless borsel, en die borsel om 'n bietjie net om alles mooi af te kry. En dan koel jy hom in water, 'n emmer met water. En dan moet mens nou net kyk met die meet hom met die vernier, net om seker te maak dat daar nog genoeg vleis op die konrod is dat jy die nuwe berings kan giet. Andersins sal mens moet 'n nuwe konrod kry. Ekskuus. So. Daar kan julle sien hoe dit gedoen word. Hey, anders aan.
Okay, die Conrad en Big Ends, Big Ends, die gewig is belangrik, veral die Conrads wat naby mekaar lê, like 1 and 2 and then 3 and 4. Wanneer jy die white metal uit het, is dit belangrik om balans te probeer kry en hulle te weeg. 'n goeie elektroniese kombuisskaal is van groot waarde. Die Conrads verskil taamlik baie in gewig en daar is ook 3 groottes op die Conrads wat maak dat daar, as jy nie kyk daarna nie, gaan jy 'n baie groot verskil in gewig hê. So as jy byvoorbeeld van die dunner tipe het, moet jy probeer 4 kry, of as jy van die dikker Conrads het, moet jy 4 van hulle probeer kry, dat jy 'n klein verskil in gewig het. Weeg hulle afsonderlik. Kevin het ook daaroor gepraat, die gewig moet op so 'n manier gedoen word. Jy kan die Conrad as sulks weeg, of jy kan die big end opsit en die ander gedeelte in jou hand liggies onder jou vinger onder hom hou, om so te sien watter kant is eintlik oor of onder gewig. En op so 'n manier kan jy probeer om hulle saam te gooi, 2 bymekaar in 'n paar. Soos ek sê, 1 of 2 en dan 3 en 4. Op die beste moontlike manier om balans te probeer kry. Jy kan die gewig probeer aanpas by just grinding off at the end of the Conrad, at the big end side, especially the cap side. There's 2 ridges there, and just a little bit make a big difference, and you can get a better balance, and the match will be much better. Ja, daar het ons gewys waar ons hulle geweeg het, en dis belangrik om hulle dan die gewig op hulle te skryf op die Conrad en die cap, en dan weet jy watter loop saam, en jy gaan hulle ook dan so saam gebruik.
Taking a little bit off there. Now, modern connecting rod on the small end has also got what they call a weight block there,
Yeah.
which means it's easy to take weight off end for end, which is the correct way of doing it.
Okay, well.
But because it's such a low revving engine, and also I'm adding white metal here, which is going to throw my weights out as well.
Okay.
But at least I'm reducing the places for,
Okay, just a side note, on modern engines, the Conrads got a 1 gram difference in weight, but on the Model T you allowed 2 grams of difference in weight per 2 cylinders. Okay, so then, as Henny said, you mark your corresponding caps and rods with punches, and then you place them in a Conrad boring machine for the rough cut that we do before casting will commence. What Kevin is doing now, he's preparing the Conrad to go into his boring machine, and therefore he needs to have a stable point.
Van nou my eerste werk doen sonder die shums.
Ja,
Ons moet nou kyk dat die gat rond is.
okay.
En as hy in die masjien is die gat ook in die middel van die. Nou, al hierdie rods verskil hierso. Is nie dieselfde nie. So al wat ek kan gebruik om wat altyd dieselfde gaan wees, dit is hierdie twee boute.
Ja.
So ek het nou twee groot nuts wat ek kan nou hier opsit
Okay.
en ek gaan nou van hierdie nuts afwerk.
Okay.
In ander woorde, ek gaan hom vashou daai kant en ek gaan hom op daai boute vashou. So dis 'n constant en dis 'n constant.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Maak sin.
Ek kom net.
Daar is die wys met die aluminium jaws. Dis nou in hierdie gevalle, maar dit is eintlik meer van belang na die tyd.
Ek wil nie hier op die this water is 7 inches long. Don't worry about measuring here, just at the moment, at 7 inches. Then I'm going to push this in here. And I've got two self-centering pins here.
Okay.
Now watch what's happening to that rod.
Yes.
You see how I'm pulling it sideways?
Yes.
Now, to a certain extent, I can move it.
Ja, dis nogal 'n belangrike deel hierdie. As hy in die masjien is, kom jy agter die konrad is gebuig.
I've got a problem here. This rod is slightly bent.
Die regstelling daarvan is baie eenvoudig. Mens wil dit amper nie sê, nie so eenvoudig is dit. Jy sit hom in die bankskroef en vat 'n groot bobbejaanspanner en druk klein bietjie en sit hom terug op die masjien totdat jy geen beweging na links of regs kry nie en dan het jy die bend is dan uit and then you can go on with the rest of the procedure.
So, if you don't have a Conrod boring machine, what is the alternative methods to do the job? Kevin explains now over here how you can use a drill press as well as a lathe to reach the same results.
In one end of it. Okay. That hole, you're going to put a gudgeon pin in. You can clamp it in there, you can weld it in there, you can do what you like. Welding is not the ideal answer. An accurate hole in a grub screw would be better because welding is inclined to pull you like that. Once you've done that, you take an old gudgeon pin, you put it in that hole, clamp it, then you move this plate over. Okay. Plate would be longer, of course. So we'll assume that this is now
Yeah.
being held. We know now that this hole is square to here.
Yeah.
And the gudgeon pin is now parallel to that shaft there.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So that's what we've got.
Ja, dis in kort wat dit op neerkom as die drillpress gebruik word. Mens kan nou baie detail daaroor gee, maar ek voel vir die ouens, die meeste wat want ons het net gevoel die meeste ouens het nie almal die toerusting om groot te gaan en jy weet om dit professioneel te doen nie, maar baie ouens het 'n baie goeie drillpress en ook 'n goeie draaibank and then you can still do the job without a problem. So that's the other options.
Just as a support. And then what we're going to do is you have a plate up here with a thread in it and a bolt. Thread in it and a bolt onto there and onto there. Okay? So when you put this in, you can center this up perfectly. touching there, because this is a constant, that's a constant, and that's a constant. So you're going to hold that like that. You can put the head in this way, it doesn't really matter. What you've got to remember is that every time you change the rod, one of these bolts must never be moved. You put a lock nut on it, you leave it there. So you back this one off a turn, you can take the end one out. Of course, you can take the rod off. You can put the rod back in again, or the next rod, or whatever. You can now bore this hole here. And you can face this side. You can then turn the rod over to face the last side. Okay? That's one way of doing it. You can do exactly the same thing in a milling machine. Depends what you've got. Now, the one I did for Philip, he's got a method like this. Put a piece of metal on it like that. Okay? And we're going to put a drill bit in there, or boring ball, and we're going to drill a hole in there, the size of your gudgeon pin.
Okay.
Like that. Okay? This here is held here and it's clamped. It's held here and it's got a light clamp on it. So this cannot move. By putting your drill bit in there and drilling a hole, you are holding this absolutely at 90 degrees or square to the axis of your lathe.
Okay.
So we put that through the hole. Then once again, a grub screw or something to hold it. Now we've got a gudgeon pin sticking like that. Take our con rod. That's our gudgeon pin. It's like that. Now when we turn this back in again, we can go back in until the center line of your chuck is on that center line there. So now that and that are parallel, so this here must be parallel as well.
Yeah.
All you need now is, once again, short fine thread screw in this plate under the nut.
Yes.
You're going to put in a lock, and another one here to hold that, and you're going to adjust that there like that. So now we've got this whole thing held there on the center line. To get the exact length, the con rod is very easy. All you do, if the chopper goes small enough, is do that. Now, that gudgeon pin should go straight into your hole. You now know that that center line and that are all together. You with me?
Yes.
When you change con rods, that bolt you never ever move. You only loosen that when it turns, that you can take the con rod out.
Yeah.
Now you've got your con rod held parallel to your center line of your headstock, and it's fixed. Very often, one of your gib adjusting screws, you might have a lock for locking your cross slide. So when you put it here, you can lock this so it can't move. Yeah. Or you undo one of the gib nuts and just tighten one gib up just a little bit so that this can't jiggle around. You'll have to put that back when you're finished. Right, now you want the ball.
Okay, so then you do a rough cut to the center of the hole where the crank needs to go in. Like this.
As die caps en die conrods nou skoon is en netjies is, hierdie is nou 'n goeie voorbeeld van voor ons begin het, van baie ouens sal byvoorbeeld na die white metal op 'n conrod en 'n cap kyk, en ek het byvoorbeeld hierdie vir Philip gestuur, en hy het ook gevoel die defekte op die white metal wys vir ons definitief dat daar nie goeie hegting op die caps is tussen metaal en die white metal nie. So dit voorspel waarskynlik probleme vorentoe en dis wat 'n ou laat besluit het om dit maar heel oor te doen. En terwyl jy in is, in for a penny, in for a pound, and therefore you just redo them all. So ja, die white metal is belangrik dat 'n ou maar as daar 'n defek op is, moet jy glo onderlyk dit baie dieselfde.
Okay, so then we need to tin plate the caps first and the conrods. So what you do is you buff out the previous badly tinned areas. On this photo at the bottom, you can see that is a badly tinned area if the white metal chipped off like that. So you buff it out and then you use the tin compound and you paint the whole area as properly as you can with the tin compound, the entire surface, including the thrust areas. And you then put it on a stand and you heat the cap and the rod from underneath until the tin gets a smooth, shiny texture. Looks like solder. And then you're ready to do the plating. But do not bring the tin in direct contact with the flame, was what Kevin told us. So you can see there,
the position of the flame is very important there.
You need to heat it from underneath. Okay. After that, you cool it off in water and then you brush off any debris. There'll be like little black spots that you just brush off. Then clean and dry your table. Make sure there's no water near because white metal and water don't mix.
Okay, dan kom ons by die mold gedeelte. Daar verskil dit baie vir die ouens wat al gekyk het op internet. Daar's baie detail molds wat bestel kan word. You can order it from the US. And they quite very detail orientated and quite easy to use also. But Kevin's molds are actually very easy to make and very easy to use. So you will see just now, and then you put the caps and the rods in the molds, and you put it. You've got nice little stands made for especially for that purpose, and then you put it on the stands. And when you put the molds on, you must seal off with gun gum, seal it off, otherwise your white metal will just throw right through and you will have a lot of trouble with that. And then in the meantime, your white metal must be heated up in a pot on the primers. You will not get the desired temperature with the primers alone. You will also need the blowtorch for that, and you will go up to about 400 degrees Celsius. And then you will also, at the same time, you will heat up the caps up to about 150 degrees Celsius. And then you can start with the pouring.
I'm going to pop it on there.
Daar's die stand, werk baie goed.
Basically, all that's going to happen now is I'm going to preheat that to about 150. You want to do it the old way. When you preheat it, you warm it. And if you put a bit of spit on it and it sits and boils, it's not hot enough. If it starts dancing like that, then it's the right temperature. And that's about 130, 150 degrees. So basically, all I'm going to do to that now is I'm going to one shot. But yes,
Nou kan ons die oksidasie op die white metal duidelik sien. Baie van die ouens wat nou gesien sit moet die hele tyd afskep.
160 nou.
Maar Kevin het glad nie nodig gehad om enigstens af te skep nie, omdat die tyd gaan onderuit betaal.
Okay. Sorry. Hy sê lekker man.
En as ek sou moet hierdie ding skoon gemaak het, maar ek trek nou van onderop, so ek is nie baie bekommerd daaroor. So al wat ek kan nou doen, sien hy kom mooi skoon daar so.
Ja.
Die word mooi deur aan ek.
Ja.
So. Sien ek laat hom net bietjie solidify, dan kan ek hom op top opgee. As hy nie heeltemal level is, dan sak hy.
Dis wonderlik hoe skoon hy is as die tyd onder die pot is. Dit is 'n briljante plan wat jy daar gemaak het.
Ja, ek kan sê ouma na vorm.
Ja.
Okay, so then as you saw there, the white metal was then casted into the molds. Then you leave it to cool off. And then you take it all apart and you use a flat file to file off any excess white metal. Basically just until it's level. And then we need shims, 3 shims on each side of the cap when assembling it to the conrod. So what we did there by Kevin was we made shims out of an old cool drink tin. The shims are then used later on as your bearings wear in. Then you can remove some of the shims to get a snugger fit onto the crankshaft. That's the finished product of the
Voor hy afgebruik is. En die gietproses.
Dan werk ons hom af. En dan van daar af gaan hy terug na die Conrod boring masjien toe en dan word hy nou gesny volgens die grootte wat nodig is. Iets wat ons net daar moet onthou is die oil clearance van 500ths of a millimeter wat ook moet ingewerk word voordat 'n mens hom begin sny.
Tertius, have you, just a question, when you do the cutting there on the lathe, do you have your 3 shims in place or not?
Yes, you do that with your shims in.
Met die finale sny is dit dan as in posisie, ja.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. And then the thrust on the sides are then also cut to give it a tight fit onto your Conrod crankshaft.
Yeah.
On the journal, yes. As I said, a 5-star oil clearance. And then after you've done that, you can fit it to the crank and then use a scraper to do minor adjustments until there's a slight drag of movement on the conrod. Then you know you're on size there.
Ja, daai gedeelte was ongelooflik om te sien.
Dit is net om te wys dat jy kan baie maklik 'n plan maak sonder 'n klomp tools.
Met 'n gewone skraper kry jy genoegsaam weggevat om perfek te kry.
Ja.
Dan sal ek 'n bietjie blou op die as sit ek kyk hierdie is nou nie mooi. Kyk, dit is amper in. Dit sal moet nog bietjie gaan. Dan sal ek dieselfde doen met die cap. Dan sal ek die cap op en 'n filler gauge vat en meet hoeveel soms ek moet volg. That's basically that. Ek kan baie gou sien. As jy hierdie blou op die ding sit, jy kan sien baie.
Ja.
Ja, maar dit is basies wat jy kan doen. Op 'n prentjie met 'n radius insit. So jy kan basies video's vir kop beskryf is, maar jy kan vir jou 'n stel maak. Baie maak met 'n ronde fyl en 'n roster. Maar dit is basies as jy dan aankrap.
Die mynbeerings, dit was my groot worry geweest en ek dink vir baie ouens, die Conrads voel so half jy het beheer oor hulle. Die mynbeerings kom op basies presies dieselfde neer en die proses verskil glad nie van enigiets nie. You go the exact way. The temperature on the white metal is still 40 to 46, a little bit higher because of the lower temperature on the block. You don't on the Conrads, the temperature on the Conrad and the caps is about 140 to 150, but on the block we don't want to go that high, so we go up to 100 because there's always a little bit of oil in the porosity of the block. So 100 Celsius will be fine on the block. There's no tinning on the block itself because we use mechanical retention. There's holes in the block, and white metal will flow into the holes, and then it will be quite stable in that position. One important thing is after the blocks white metal is casted, then you'll have to pin it. And there's a lot of different ways. I saw a few guys on Mike Bender's videos using air, like a air, what do you call it? Yeah, sort of a small air hammer. And other guys use Wilson tools, but Kevin just used a pinning hammer, very stupid thing, and just to settle the metal straight to the hard base. Yeah, and then the line board is the next procedure, and also the line boarding, as I always say, when you do the line boarding with a machine like Kevin's machine, it's complex, but it's for a guy who knows, it's quite simple to use. But not a lot of people have got these kind of machines in their workshops, so I will always want to do the job. But if you don't have the machine, then you've got a problem, and therefore there's quite a nice frame that Kevin made that you can do your own line boring without using a machine like this. There's the mold in position and it's casted. The others are already out. There's the pinning hammer.
Hoe mooi die hammer is net 'n stuk flat iron met 'n bolbering vasgeblaas.
Ek het gewonder waar kom hy.
Ja.
And that's how you cast white metal on a Model T block. Thanks.
Thank you, Tertius. Henny, thank you very much. I don't think it's a simple process. Kevin might make it look simple, but I think you have to really concentrate in doing that, because I mean it's got to be perfect. But it was very interesting. Any questions? Anybody? Any questions for Eni or for Tertius?
Just a few comments. Before you cast the bearings in the block, you must set up the machine and the line borer or whatever you use as a line boring rig first. You can't cast it and then set it up, because you need to have the center of your caps and your hole basically set up before you cast those bearings. Don't
That's
cast the bearings and then try and set it up. That won't work. The same with the conrods. And then the flux that comes off when you do the tinning, you need to clean that very thoroughly, because in that tinning fluid, there's a flux acid liquid that makes a sticky residue on the conrods and the caps. And if you don't clean that properly, you will have bubbles and things in the white metal if you cast it.
Thank you. Any questions, guys?
Rather ask for advice, Kobus.
Well, if there's no questions, I suppose all these guys feel they're quite ready to start casting their own bearings. No response. Bernard, did you learn something from that?
Yes, I know something. I have done this in United States when I was there. The people from the Model T Club in Colorado have a big experience about this, and they have an aluminium frame. What you can do, screw on Model T and Model A engine blocks, and then you can do line boring direct on the block. It is with some bearings, and then you have a drill, a machine, electric drill, and then you can go with cutters inside. What was very new for me, what the people in United States never have done, was line boring before they do the casting. So this is a very interesting thing what I see today, that the experience here, that you do first the line boring, that all is completely round, and then you do the casting. For me was also very interesting in United States. They use a special, I think it's like a primer on a car, what they put inside the bearings, what you heat with a flame, with a gas, and heat it, that you have a special connection between the cast iron, and then I see here that they put the white metal direct in the cast iron. So this is something different, but it's very interesting, and the temperature is also different. The people in the United States use higher temperatures for the caps and for the block. I understand that the oil, what is in the very old cast iron, can go out, and then you have problems. But I think perhaps this is why they use the sealing between the cast iron and the white metal. So that's, yeah. And what is also interesting, you put also the oil pipes and oil grinds inside the main bearing and the rod bearings, or you leave it straight as it was on the first Model A's, Model T's. The first early ones not have any space for the oil. You know, there is some grinding what you do inside the white metal, that the oil can flow, and some put also the special dippers what you can screw under the nuts of the rod bearings. This is special, yeah, pieces what takes more oil inside the rod bearings. I don't know if you know this or you have knowledge about this, I only like to ask if you use the system what we see now without the hole in the cap of the rods, or you have also experience that you use these special dippers. It's aftermarket, what we say, what is the name in English? Yeah, it's a part what you screw on the rods on the down that they go more deep inside the oil and takes more oil for the rod, so that you have a better oil system.
Bernard, is the what you're talking about in the caps, what we've sometimes do is to file or grind a groove in the cap after the casting.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what you're talking about.
Yeah, grooves, yeah. Okay.
Bernard, no, I don't think that all the bearings that I've seen and that I've done, I'm talking about the Conrods. They were all clear. They didn't have the oil groove in it. In the block itself, I think it's a good thing to have the oil groove in there. But
yeah, the interesting thing is that when you have no grooves in, that you have a bigger size of the bearing. The size is bigger and the pressure is then more straight. You not have so much pressure on the bearings. Was very interesting that we talk about white metals that people. I was in a engine repair shop by a very old man. He was a specialist of Caterpillar, and he told me that you have to take a very small hammer, and when the casting is done, then he takes the hammer and go over the white metal and make it more hard or more stronger, and then after this he does a line boring. So this is something what I see from a very old specialist in United States, what have done a lot of engines, and he was sure that this is the right way to make it more harder. But I'm sure that with the shims inside, you have the situation that when the bearings have air, then you can adjust it again and will be fine.
yeah, I think we saw in the video they called it that pinning, if I'm not mistaken. That was they were also using a little hammer to I don't know whether to harden it or what exactly is it for. That's just that little hammer that you guys use.
Yeah,
Yes,
I'm
it's
sure
used
when
to,
you buy.
it's used to pin the white metal, meaning that the white metal are pushed into that holes that's in the block,
And on the base, yes.
and that makes it hardened and stick to the block.
Yeah, it's also compacting it a bit more.
Yeah.
Sorry, ek wil net tog ook vra, as mens nou daai jigs maak vir die white metal casting, dan moet daai shafts basies undercut wel ondersize wees. More or less,
100%.
hoeveel ondersize is daai wat julle dan gaan? Is dit vreeslik baie of is dit in 'n maar eintlik marginal? Kyk, as mens nog pin, dan gaan jy mens ook nog 'n taamlik nog materiaal wil by hê om daai surface te hoog harden voor jy mens sny. Maar min of meer hoeveel ondersize gaan julle met die jigs wat julle maak?
Heel wat ondersize, Johan, want jy moet jy kan nie altyd daai mold 100% center opsit nie. So jy moet 'n bietjie allow om daai genoeg metaal te hê om te kan wegsny.
Okay.
So is dit ten minste
As
1,5 millimeter.
Ja,
Philip?
ek wou sê dit is miskien 2 na 3 millimeter as jy die
Ja.
deursnee vat. Maar ek kan vir jou die sample gee. Ek kan hom vir jou meet. Kevin het vir my 'n stel gemaak. So dit het ons.
Okay, nee, dis goed, dankie oom.
Thank you. Any other questions? Remarks?
Ook kan ek miskien net ietsie vra? Kobus,
Yes.
now, how did you determine the heat in the melting pot? How did you determine the heat was 400
In the
degrees?
melting pot. Kevin's got a thermometer that's it's part of a
Multimeter.
of the multimeter.
It's
Okay,
a
I
digital
think-
thermometer with a probe on it that
Yeah.
I gave Kevin. It's a normal. You can buy a multimeter with that, or you can buy a digital thermometer with a probe on it that can take up to 500 degrees C. And then you just stick it into the white metal.
Where do you buy it, Oker?
Any good electrical place will sell it. Harold's Electrical or any of those guys can get it for you, Philip.
Oker, won't these surface thermometers, won't that also work?
We've tried it with a surface with one of those infrared guns. I've given Kevin one of those as well. But sometimes the reflection of the white metal, it affects the reading. So you don't have a very accurate reading with the reflection of that heat that comes off it.
Philip, the thermometer that we used, my display was faulty. You remember the one that we used, but that's exactly the one that Okkert is talking about. I think it's a type K thermocouple, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, type K is something that can measure up to about 1,200 degrees C, so that's perfectly. And that's a very common thermocouple you can buy.
Yeah.
Any other remarks, guys? Nothing. Hierdie Tertius, ek net voor julle praat, wil ek net weer eens sê baie dankie. Dit was 'n baie goeie aanbieding gewees, wat ek dink baie leersaam gewees. En ek weet dit was harde werk, maar daar was nie baie tyd nie, so julle moes 'n bietjie kersse gebrand het seker die laaste tyd. So baie dankie.